Hey everyone, welcome to my channel, and in today's video we are going to be working on a Ryobi 2300BT inverter generator, and we'll give you some thoughts on what I think of the machine and what the problem is here. Customer brought it in, said that it no longer wanted to start. They used it on a couple tailgating events and then just all of a sudden stopped working altogether and started puking oil all over the place and wouldn't start back up. But thankfully this is one of the more simple fixes. The reason why it was leaking oil everywhere was that the drain plug here, or at least the fill plug, that's right here, was cross-threaded, and that you can see there's some leftover remnants of oil underneath here, and that was really the only problem. And this motor is actually the same motor that is on my EF2000iS Yamaha inverter generator. It's the same exact motor, which is pretty cool actually. Now, as far as the inverter electronics and the features, I'll go over that in a few minutes, but I know this engine to be a very reliable engine. Unfortunately, the machine sat for a little over a year. They just immediately replaced it, and you wanted to get it fixed, but now the carburetor has got to be cleaned out, and I'm using a new toy. This is an ultrasonic cleaner. It's a 15 liter, and as you can see, I have the carburetor in there now after I took it apart, and I've had it in there for about 15 minutes soaking, and also had the ultrasonics working. The cool thing about this is that you put this in, you can only put it in for 30 minutes, but it uses very high frequency sound through the water to break apart all the varnish and crap that would develop on the carburetor, and it seems to be doing really good. I got a little bit of got a little bag here with the little jets and everything so it doesn't get lost, and it's got a heating capability. Right now this only shows in centigrade. I have it set to 65, but it hasn't gotten up to temperature just yet because it just finished. But this is more than hot enough to break up all the crap that's inside the carburetor. Just to give you an idea what this sounds like. So I just got the carburetor cleaned up, and the ultrasonic cleaner did a really good job. Just wanted to give a word of caution when you're taking this out of the machine to begin with. Again, this is very similar for the Yamaha EF2000iS. This one has, you have to remove the breather. You have two 10 millimeter bolts right here. You're not going to be able to take the linkage and the wire apart. So what you're going to do is you're disconnecting the linkage here and removing the two bolts that hold the entire assembly on. You don't want to take that out. And then when you have these 10 millimeter bolts come off, you just can swing the breather tube out of the way, and this entire assembly should slide right off no problem. And again, you want to drain out the carburetor bowl before you do that so you don't make a mess. I would recommend, here's the fuel line, pinch it off with some pinch pliers. There is a fuel filter, which is good to see, but the problem that I see with a lot of these inverter generators is that they have the fuel valve and the kill switch all in one control here, which makes things easier. But even in the off position, I noticed that it was still dripping fuel at a much slower rate, but it was still dripping fuel. I don't think those fuel valves are very good, but maybe it's what they're designed for. But if I get a shut-off valve, I want it to completely shut off the flow of fuel to the carburetor. That's my only gripe with this machine. And as far as the oil goes, the oil takes, it's 10W30, but they do not tell you how much. They tell you to go buy the dipstick. I think this is a DH80 machine. It doesn't really take a lot of oil to begin with, so just go buy the dipstick. I think it's like less than half a quart. That's how small it is. And finally, I know a lot of other people have said this about this generator and other inverter generators. They expect you to tip this over towards you in order to drain the oil out. You can take out the two screws and there's this little drip tray, but I'm not going to work that hard here. I'm going to work smarter and get yourself an oil extractor. One of those there to vacuum out the oil makes things a ton easier and no mess at all. I also changed out the spark plug. It comes with those cheap torch ones. You really can't get in there. Now my Yamaha has one of the tools here that, if I can find it, is a very long, it looks like this. This is the tool that you're actually supposed to have. You cannot use your typical socket like this because it's actually too thick. If you see here how thick it is on the walls here, there's not really a lot of room. You need something that with very thin walls, but it's the same size. Got to get yourself one of these. You can pick these right up at AutoZone. If you've lost it when it came with the generator, no problem. So we're going to load test this. I'm using True Fuel 4-cycle fuel that I got from Home Depot. In my opinion, this is the best stuff to have, and especially in a machine like a generator or a snowblower that you only use seasonally. If it's going to sit more times out of the air than not, then you want to use a fuel that doesn't have the ethanol in it. That way it doesn't break down on you, give you all the fuel problems that I just had to go through to clean up. Finally, wanted to show my 15-liter ultrasonic cleaner. I use this to clean the carburetor out. And just to give you an idea of what was in that carburetor, and I know it's going to be a little hard to focus on, but there's all the crap that was in there and making the engine not run properly. Highly recommend getting something like this if you're going to be doing a lot of carburetor work. This is the professional way to clean it. So my final thought on this generator as I get ready to go and give it back to the customer. Features wise, I think this is really cool. You can sync it to your phone using the front panel here. You can control the auto idle and see how many hours are left on the machine before it runs out of fuel, and also to be able to shut off the machine. Subjectively speaking, I think this is a really good generator for the features that it has. As far as mechanical reliability, I know that the engine is going to be very serviceable for many hours for years to come, but I don't know about the electronics portion. I haven't been able to measure the output sine wave here on an oscilloscope, but one thing I noticed that's different from the Yamaha that I have in this one, you have a lot of exposed components here. You got the choke here, you got a bunch of capacitors, MOVs. You know, it's pretty typical of what you would find. It is potted in epoxy resin, but on the Yamaha, everything is actually encased inside a large heat sink. This may not be a big deal, but considering how it was built, I can understand why it was done this way, especially at the price point this is sold at.